everyone, welcome back. It is just me now. If you weren't around before, I suppose, for everything that happened. Usually I have a solo cast thing, but I'm not gonna bother. So yeah, it's a solo cast for the best of 5 finals, another TVT with, damn it, Byun and Ryung. Great. And we're finally getting ready to go. So it's New Gettysburg as the default first map, as that is the way things are done in the Lima League. Default first map changes upon the round. Thank you to Daxter, 33 for the 4-month resub. And then loser's choice beyond that with only 5 maps for the map pool. Thank you to Spectralist for the new sub and Winter Viewbot 227 for the new sub as well while we were on the break. I think that's all I missed. Maybe not. Oh, that's right. Let's see here. Biggest, Big Mo subscribed, and Dumb Dick. That's right. Also subbed while we were on break. Thank y'all very much. And let's get into the finals. The best of 5. Oh, thank you to Kralg. That's really hard to say. Thank you for the new sub as well. In the bottom left, as the blue Terran, he is Ryung. Oh, that's bottom right. My bad. In the bottom left, there we go, as the red Terran, he is Byun. I guess because New Gettysburg, like, really doesn't look that different if you're, like, on the actual player and you don't look at the minimap. I always do this on New Gettysburg. I just usually don't... I usually fix it before I have to speak. So, yeah, I always get these locations wrong. It's almost like the Dusk Tower effect for me, except that one is weird because the minerals are on the wrong side. People always get the bottom versus top wrong. Anyway, so we already talked a little bit about the finals in the last semifinals, because that was also a TVT, but just how the dynamic works, basically, of TVT in the Lima League. Very popular matchup in the Lima League, but with Byun to consider. So Byun, whether it's a TVZ or a TVT, almost guaranteed to win nowadays. That's pretty harsh for any of his opponents, but it is also pretty true. Byun has fixed his TVT problems from a couple months ago, and now looks really, really good in it. It's one of those things that, like, okay, he's most well known for his TVZ for sure, because that's where, like, his flashy moves and his utter domination comes from, but TVT, he's very, very solid. TVP, he's usually very solid as well, although you do see weakness in his TVP against certain styles and certain plays. It's like the only chance someone has to take the Lima League away from Byun. Because Byun also, despite being an overall fantastic player, being on a hot streak, just being the world's, like, best right now, he also just owns the Lima League, basically, alright? So it's like no joke when those fans bring the coffee and donuts or whatever and say it's the Byun Lima League, which is very hard to say. Because he has, like, almost, like, home field advantage, okay, when he plays in the Lima League. You check the Lima League Wikipedia, and he will have by far the most medals of Terran, of weeklies, of monthlies. He's just really good in this damn thing. But Ryung is certainly a TVT master, too, and this would be a really good chance for him to get the win here. And I can see that happening. I just think it's going to be a very, very hard fight. Now, Byun did open up with a Reaper expand into Reactor, so it was a little bit scary, but luckily his Reaper ended up getting a couple extra shots, excuse me, and maybe it was really supposed to. And Ryung, that pounce on top of Byun's army, that sometimes works and then snowballs. Or it works, gets them very distracted, and the follow-up works, you know, and that snowballs. Like, it's a very scary point in time in TVT when you go for the Reaper expand and they go for the one base build. Even if you know exactly what they're doing and are, you know, you're best prepared for it, it can still go topsy-turvy if you don't have the correct control. So they actually did a good job defending against that. The Banshee follow-up is usually not unexpected, but there are a couple different options, so always perfectly responding to the follow-up can be very, very difficult. Of course, a Cyclone and a Viking will cover your bases against most things off of a one base from the Terran, but it won't cover the exact positioning sometimes. And sometimes it actually won't cover it, because if it's a medevac with a tank push, Viking, Cyclone can sometimes just be killed. But it's a drop from Byun first. Take a look at that Banshee when she actually gets into the natural, I suppose. Now, Ryung has a couple of Hellions, pulls the SCVs, 4 SCVs go down, these Hellions go into the natural. A Widowmine placed kind of in an awkward position, not usually seen there. But he's going to be able to deny the command center for a little bit. Oh, if he focus fired, he would be able to. That SCV's going to live and complete the command center. He was too busy focusing on the home defense as well as continuing to micro this drop. Actually just starts losing on every single front. The Hellion died, didn't kill his SCV. The medevac drop, basically done with only 2 Marines left over. That's not going to do very much. And then the Cyclone dies over here along with a handful of SCVs. I would say that's okay damage done for Ryung, but it's still not enough to actually equalize the workers or the army. It just was... Yeah, okay, you denied everything that Byun tried to throw at you. Good job, Ryung, and you got a little bit of damage yourself. But he wants to continue being the one to control the game with a Banshee. He's going for that quick third command center on location that has actually killed him in the past when he was facing Gumiho. He went down 2 games early on, and one of those games actually was when he went for a third very quickly and got punished for it. So this is going to be a little bit scary, but if his Banshee can get appropriate scouting, if it can kind of scare Byun to staying at home, you know, make sure he has Marines and Cyclones to deal with it, then Ryung should be able to get away with this, at least be able to finish it. Worst case scenario for him, you know, actually, that's not even the worst case scenario, like, the best thing he could do if things do start to get looking pretty poor for him, like he doesn't have army, he's being out microed, out macroed, whatever, he could just lift the 3rd CC and then take it back to 2 bases, but that's not ideal. As Byun is getting his own 3rd on location as well. Just almost an entire command center behind. Ryung does have Stim already on the way as well as upgrades, whereas Byun is... I think he completed 2 engineer bases. Oh, only the 1. So he's not getting Stim. He's not getting upgrades. He is dropping, though, and oh my god, it was a big drop. 2 Vikings accompanied this. Tank on siege. Actually, a lot of DPS in this. But of course, the splash damage would have been really nice to have as well. Even without the splash damage, 21 SCVs go down. And here I am talking about the 3rd bases when actually the game just ends. Ryung, yes, if this push had come into the natural right here, and he's scared of losing his 3rd base, yes, he could have picked up his 3rd base. That's absolutely correct. But no use doing that when they just attack right into your main base. This was not supposed to do, I think, like... This wasn't literally supposed to end the game, but ideally for Byun, it did do almost game-ending damage, which I think it did. He's now down 26 SCVs. That's quick math on stream. Amazing. Byun, though, shouldn't lose his command center. Oh my god. Whoa. Whoa. Okay, well that changes things up a little bit. I would still say that's game-ending damage. That many SCVs going down along with Ryung's own army. They traded out an army supply pretty well. But the fact that Byun has to cancel a command center, that's 100 minerals, obviously, but also just the time spent on it, and now he has to lift and whatever. That's a lot more time. I think Ryung could actually start to come back economy-wise. In fact, there's still, well, for a minute he did anyway. But of course he still has to build more SCVs, where Byun doesn't really have to, like maybe another 2 rounds or so, but then that should be it. Ryung, that's going to be a lot of extra minerals going into that. I still would say, like, that wasn't supposed to happen. I guess he was really afraid of moving his Marines out. Maybe he didn't have a scan or something. Well, Banshee tries to distract, I think, for the medevac, but... well, barely survives. There's Marines here, too. Now, Ryung did have faster Stim and 1-1, which is, like, along, like, paired up with the denial of the 3rd base for that much longer. Like, these are things that actually make him have a comeback in this game. But even with the 3rd CC and the faster upgrades, things will eventually even out. And Byun's better SCV count for a lot longer should still go into his favor. I mean, it actually right now is. I think he's only 10 army supply up. Now he's almost 20 army supply up. It really is, though, about the upgrades now. I don't think Ryung got combat shields, and he hopefully has not forgotten about that. Oh, that's a freebie tank. Oh, no. Ooh, actually, a series of unfortunate events here for Byun. His tank left alone. His Marines in the medevac have to be unloaded first, which is unideal. And, well, it's going to turn into a bit of a base trade, I guess. Now the army count, or the worker count's been evened up. Third CC gonna live, Natural gonna live. This attack, though, has been cleaned up with a nice concave and an SCV pool. Beyond loses 19 SCVs, but stays strong at 59 army supply. Still has a lot of army units over here, and let's not forget that Byun will have combat shields. Ryung has not gotten in. Of course, maybe he was intentionally pushing it off for like a little while longer. Now that things have gotten very hectic, I don't think he's gonna remember. Oh, no, he does. Okay, good. Well, that's still about like a minute behind that of Byun's, and they are very close to attacking into each other. Even if Byun leaves here, just packs up, goes home, he still is in a better position. All of his bases are back to mining, whereas Ryung, okay, he saved a couple SCVs, but his third is not mining, obviously. Banshee almost gets a tank. Wow, this Banshee costs 2 scans from Byun, but he can do that. He might be at 37 SCVs, but at least it's all mining. Whereas Ryung on 40 SCVs is only mining from the main base, so he's only really mining with 9, mineral-wise. They're both big enough gas, I don't have to worry about that super soon, but... Byun also starts his upgrade, so combat shields in favor, also +2 in favor, eventually. But this army's gonna get cleaned up without combat shields. Or with combat shields, sorry. Even with combat shields against no combat shields. There's just too much for Ryung, so maybe Byun overstayed his welcome a little bit. So still put him in a really good position overall in this game. Thank you to the amazing Renegade for the new sub. Yay! And here is Ryung's not quite final push. Like, they're really exchanging, like, blow for blow, SCV damage, army for army. So it's a situation where Byun is, yes, he's ahead, and he's gonna get further ahead of the upgrades, but it's only by, like, a small amount. Any mistake, any positional mistake from Byun, and Ryung could certainly deal some return damage and then some. Like, he could actually kill a base, which has not happened so far, but if it happens for Ryung and not for Byun, then, you know, kudos, Ryung's back in the game in a really big way. But it's going to be another bit of a base trade, like literally base SCVs or base SCVs. No, this is actually going to be literal bases. Like, there's too many Marines. One of these command centers should be going down here. Natural's going to go down for Ryung. He's pre-lifting his main base, but unfortunately his production is still camped. He's trying to camp Byun's production. Not quite there, but he's damn close enough. Like, maybe this one tank will get like a shot. This Woodamine's gonna get a shot. Nice micro from Ryung, but that's about it, and it is full-on base race territory. Byun sends units to the third base. Unfortunately, this was already damaged from earlier, and it's not being repaired. Ryung has 900 minerals, almost 1,000 minerals, and a couple more SCVs, but even if he had repaired, I don't think it would have been enough. That's still gonna go down. He has this base, and that's it. It's actually gonna go down as well as Byun chases, and Ryung has so many minerals left over, but no SCVs and no command center. 1,000 minerals that cannot be used. His production facilities are also going to go down. This is terrible, and of course he's supply block now, so he really cannot use his bank. Byun has saved the command center. He saved a couple of production facilities. Actually, he saved all of his command centers. Byun is absolutely going to win a literal base race. Also, keep in mind that New Gettysburg does have locations to completely hide your buildings that you do need to get a Viking for. Byun is the one that can build a Viking. Ryung cannot. I think he lost his starport. Oh, maybe not. Oh, it's actually the healthiest building by far. These are all gonna burn. I bet Byun... I don't know if he intentionally did this, but if he did, then kudos. Get them all to burn. You know, that eventually kill themselves, basically. And this one is the only one that Byun has to deal with now. Now, Ryung, once he realizes, as Medivac's scouting around, that he's not killed all the command centers, you know, the little reveal thing has not popped up for him, and that they're not located anywhere. This Medivac's gonna see that they're in the corner. He maybe, like a last chance, could try and take an army fight, but he would have to win the army fights and then it'd have to be a draw, a straight up draw. That's the only way that Ryung cannot take a lost point here, basically. Which I don't see happening. At least he was able to deny the +2 upgrade, I guess, that Byun was getting. Thank you to Helpless Hippo for the new sub. Here goes Ryung. Drops the tanks. Does take out a couple of tanks of Byun. Not a bad start, but it's an even start, you know? And he needs better than even. I don't even... Bjorn's playing a bit of a risky game by leaving half his army over here, I would say, but... That wasn't even Bjorn's full army fight. So Bjorn kills a couple of Marines because I think he wants to build a tank or something? Maybe he just wants to build a Viking. I think he wants to build a Viking. Wouldn't he need to kill more, though? There's one SCV. One SCV. Oh, you sneaky. Okay, so yeah, Viking. A Viking's a pretty good move. You can see that Bjorn recognizes, like, it's literally at a point where none of them are producing. Obviously, Ryung isn't. But Bjorn isn't quite producing either. If he loses the fight, even if it's by 4 Marines and a medevac, that's still enough for Ryung to cause the draw. So he has to be very careful not to lose the fight at all. He wants the win. He doesn't want a draw. And even... the thing is, even if he loses the fight... okay, he chooses to lift up. I don't know. I actually don't know how this is going to work out. You know, Bjorn actually lost like a handful of Marines right there, I think, just because he tried to lift and a couple of them died. But even if Ryung took the fight and Bjorn, you know, had no army left over, he still has all these buildings, right? And a Viking. So he's starting to mine right now. It would be still a very, like, long game of Ryung trying to find and kill every single command center. Which, you know, Bjorn still has 3 of. Like... in a wonky world, say that Bjorn even straight up loses the fight. Like, it's 10 Marines and 2 medevacs left over for Ryung. That's quite a bit in this situation. He could literally take this base, and this base, and it would take Ryung so long to kill it, he could play whack-a-mole. He could still try and win, basically. This Viking's gonna take care of the last building, though. This is why it's so important to get the Viking. Not only did it provide, you know, if high ground became a complication for Bjorn, it also provides the chance to actually target the medevac, of course, that's carrying Ryung's tanks. It also takes care of the last building, which without that Viking, Ryung does not have to worry about. He can actually just leave it wherever he wants. But this probably will be a kill move. Starport with a Banshee. He's got to get over there and kill it. But if he leaves the starport alone, the Viking gets a lot of shots off it. If he leaves it alone, if he leaves it with like a handful of Marines, like which I think he was thinking about doing, so that the Viking can't kill it, Bjorn still has an army. As soon as he realizes that starport is kind of alone, he will snipe it. And at this point, there's no way that Ryung can win, I would say. Production is starting. His only hope was that he would be able to play whack-a-mole before production started for Bjorn. But especially with the cloak, I think that's it for Ryung. It's definitely got to be game. He wants to kill the cloak, and he might still be able to. Oh my god, he's gonna get it. He's gonna get cloak. Okay, so the Banshees do not get the free damage, and there's only one Banshee as well, which, okay, micro potential is there, I guess, but... that's gonna be pretty difficult. Gets a command center. Still has his damn starport alive. Gets a couple more SCVs. I mean, Ryung is really trying to make this into a draw, alright? And in the weirdest world, I guess, 'cause I'm talking about all of these scenarios. In the weirdest scenario, Bjorn thinks he can win by continuing to mine, right? He plays the whack-a-mole game like, well, I got 2 command centers still, so you gotta find both. If he accidentally doesn't lift a command center fast enough, or lift a building fast enough, and he loses all of his floatable buildings, I guess it would still be a draw, wouldn't it, though? Well, no, he would, like... yeah, like, if he loses all of his floatable buildings, then Ryung could actually win. He could actually kill the last building if Bjorn messes this up. Which I don't think he can, but, you know, just the fact that Ryung just got a command center, it's like, okay, it's a little bit scary, like... maybe he can? No, okay, Ryung's gonna do it. Ryung taps out. I think he assumes that Bjorn has the island base covered, which he almost did. Bjorn actually had units building in the island base, and he had a tank at the island base, but I don't think he had all of his units over there. So, Ryung could have tried to break the island base and forced another float off, but I think he assumed that Bjorn was holding up there with the Marines and the medevacs. What a fun game. That was, like, there's a ton of possibilities, but ideally, like, it was up to Bjorn to force it into a draw. God forbid he mess up so badly that he could force it into a loss. And Ryung's win. That would have been the worst base race I've ever seen. Well, maybe not. Jaedong letting probes kill a gas extractor was pretty bad too. Well, okay, the next map's gonna be King Sejong Station, and it is Ryung's map choice. It's a TVT though, so this really is coming down to like, what map are they confident on, as opposed to like, I'm gonna abuse the hell out of this map for X and Y reason. It's not really gonna happen. There we go. Countdown has started. Yeah, I was worried that game would actually go on for like another 7 minutes. I knew that Byeon was gonna win unless he severely screwed up, but there's a chance that Ryung really just stayed in it for a very long time. Okay, best of 5 still. In the top left as the red Terran and up 1, he is Byeon. In the bottom right, as the blue Terran, he is Ryung. Having a solo cast? Why is that? Because Rifkin and the Korean server do not get along well together. Literally do not know why, what changed with the recent patch. There's been no fix. No one, like, that he's talked to knows a fix. It just happens. So, for the Lima League specifically, I stream, and sometimes I also have to solo cast, so, oh well. As a reminder, I guess, the last series of the day is the Lima League monthly finals. Of course, there's still another month of weeklies to be had. And then, yeah, I guess the grand finals. But if you want to support it, if you want to see rewards you can get, such as the replays from today and from any other Lima League, you can go to patreon.com/olimoli. Another benefit to doing that, so besides like to benefit yourself, like replays casted, just straight up replays from the events, I think there's like some coaching somewhere in there as well. You also benefit the Korean scene, which has always been a really big thing about the Lima League. That's what was originally created. You do so in a bigger way too now. Whatever goal we reach, Twitch will ensure that we will continue matching that goal, even if later on the Patreon starts to dip. So every new goal is kind of like that new like set. This is what it's going to be for the Lima League. This is how tempting it's going to be for the bigger and better Korean players. This, you know, of course, already we've seen a little bit of that happening. Lucira starts playing, Stork starts playing, Stats even played, Lost to Beyond earlier. It's actually really working. So definitely look to contribute to that. And then lastly, as we see this game finally starting to kind of heat up, one base versus one base, you can go to twitch.tv/LimaLeague, I believe it is, and see the live studio production. These guys are in studio in Korea, in Seoul, and they have the player cams on. You can see their reactions to the Doom drop and whatnot. And if you like to do that, or you like Korean casting, I suppose, there's always that possibility. You can check it out over there right now. But alright. Reaper is scouting every which way. You know, Byeon probably excuse me. He doesn't have to watch the stream, you know? He probably does whenever he, whoopsie daisies, wrong button. And the wrong button again. Amazing. He probably does in, like, the weeklies. He probably watches the stream whenever he can to learn about his opponent for his finals. But with the live production, he could probably just have, like, watched, like, an in-studio TV, or watched, like, literally behind Ryung or something like that. He probably saw Ryung's games versus Gumiho. Ooh, Byeon instantly denied right there. Ooh, that did not go well. So he knows that Ryung specifically proxied on King Sejong Station. That's probably why he was scouting so religiously. But unfortunately with his scouting, he was missing a Reaper, he had a later attack anyway, and Ryung just actually pushed him back very, very easily. But maybe too far forward. Okay, they're both gonna back off from each other. Ryung with the 2 Reapers had a little bit more like staying power, I suppose, because of course they can take a couple of shots and then continue living if they can get out of combat, but it was a safer move for both of them to just not let that potential snowball happen. Either way, Reaper Hellion fights can get very tricky. You think you're in a great position, and then one blast of a Hellion shot later, and then you're the one that's losing. Liberator follow-up. Expected that or a Banshee. For Ryung, the medevac follow-up's actually a little bit risky, I would say. So he might be looking for a direct push, as he's also getting a tank. But in doing so, he doesn't have a very good response to his opponent's starport tech. Which, again, I think the Banshee and the Liberator is a little more common in the follow-up. So it's really only the Cyclone. The Cyclone does pull back. Unfortunately, Byun, I guess, was trying to distract, gets his army caught a little off guard, exchanged blows to blow. Not so bad, though. I do think that was a surprise, but ends up making the best out of a surprising scenario. Liberator is cleaned up, but I believe that Byun saw the medevac, which is actually a pretty big... Yeah, he did, right? It's with the main army. So he knows that there's a main push on the way. It's not about having his Viking and his Cyclone and whatever in a main base, preparing against a drop or a Liberator or something like that. It's about having units to make sure he doesn't just get... well, killed here, actually. Like, with a main engagement, with a main push from Ryung, he could actually force not only the command center lift off, but also get top of production. But Byun, he's had these army units roaming around every which way, trying to get around this main push, and he finally did. So a lot of SCVs go down in Ryung's natural. Byun, he already pre-pulled his SCVs, so only 2 go down. He doesn't have a lot of units back at home, and in fact, he's losing a lot of the key ones, like the Cyclone and the Viking, but he still has a Banshee. If Cloak finishes, he could actually kill the Marines and maybe even the tank. 1 Marine on top of this medevac will kill it. He's gonna pull the SCVs. The Banshee actually goes for a couple of the Marines, but unfortunately, it is dying to that Viking. Maybe a repair on the Banshee would have been better. I don't know. But the Viking now feeling a little bit useless, but it's so much damage every which way. This attack's still going on, by the way. Not much was available to clean it up. Only 2 Hellions left over with very minimal health. 21 SCVs dead to 20. Byun at 9, though. Ryung still at 21. I think Ryung actually is the one that wins here. I don't know how he has so many more SCVs fit losing the same amount, but Byun also lost a lot of his army. He had a couple of key units, like I was saying, but unfortunately they got kind of caught with the SCVs at one point, so there's Miss Micro right there, and just, you know, they were important units, but they weren't a lot of units, whereas Ryung had, comparatively, a lot of units. And Byun, you know, maybe he should have... because I was watching the other side so much, maybe Byun could have gotten to the main a bit faster and killed even more SCVs, I'm not sure. But he did demolish the natural and just couldn't deal the exact... well, he dealt like almost the same exact amount of damage, but he couldn't deal more, which is what he needed. He needed more damage. And I cannot believe this, but these SCVs are still not in one-shot range, despite being in the orange health. Feels bad. This Banshee should be doing like twice the amount of damage. Or at least in half the time. That's a little unfortunate. Still though, gets 8 SCVs, lives. I don't know how it lived. This Banshee is still going to town though, actually denying mining. It looks like Ryung might have lost a Banshee to the north. He did. That's what was cleaned up. So Byun holds on to the SCVs that he had. He kills 8 more. He forces a scan. And he brings it to a pretty damn even game again, despite being down so heavily initially. So only down by 4 CVs and 6 army supply. It was a good choice by him, I guess, to go for the Raven. Had he not done that, this might have already been game over. The Raven will also be able to help out with maybe like a... I'm actually not sure what would be better. Maybe a point defense drone? Maybe an auto turret? Auto turret doesn't survive very long, so that's why I'm always so... I mean, they both don't survive for very long, but... It's gonna be tricky. Byun also, you know, he's gonna have to deal with 2 attacks, potentially. So he's gotta split up. And if he splits up and there's not 2 attacks, and just one big one, he's also gonna get screwed, too. So this is very, very scary. He doesn't have a Viking, he only has that Raven and a Cyclone. And that Cyclone will die very quickly to a tank. To 2 tanks, for sure. No point in swapping. The Banshees take care of the add-ons anyway. Cloak a little bit useless with a Raven available, but I guess why not? Gets a tank. 2 Banshees kill tanks so quickly. Almost loses the Banshee. Oh, they stopped. I guess he would have lost it eventually. It was already so low, but scans for either sides. The Banshee wants to get extra SCV damage done. It finds a sweet spot away from the missile turret. Main engagement goes down. It was auto turrets chosen, but I don't think it's going to be enough. This one tank to the top is just doing so much damage, and this tank is not going to survive. The Viking came way too late. It's not going to be able to take care of the Raven and the medevac. but they already provided so much. Bjorn is trying to hold on, but I don't think he can. Medevac goes down, so at least the tank can't be maneuvered again. But he's going to lose so many SCVs in the defense. Viking lands, Marines are getting cleaned up. Banshee still doing damage. There wasn't a missile in the main base. How is it not a missile in the main base? How is that possible? What? Oh my god, he's not building it. Build it! He's not building it! What is happening? Is Bjorn actually going to even this game up again? How? Oh, okay, he's finally building it. I guess he just thought, like, I'd just go to the one that sells a missile turret, but he lost more SCVs in the transfer. He didn't actually break Bjorn. He's basically been trying to break Bjorn's back his entire time, and he's gotten so close to it. But in doing so, he's lost so many SCVs. These SCVs actually are freebies as they try and go back to mining in the main base. Production also kind of freebies. These two Marines, why not? The scan goes down and the Cyclone pops out at the exact right moment. He gets one more Marine before that thing goes down. But 17 SCVs from that one Banshee. Bjorn is actually going to supply lead? Almost. He's in a worker lead anyway, but his army is not looking so hot. The abusive position is actually not so abusive when you don't have the Viking control. Medevac is scared off and the tank's at the unsiege. This game continues despite being so flippin' back and forth. Hot damn. Another Banshee for Bjorn. These things are actually doing work. Usually after the second or third Banshee in a TVT, you just stop because they have missile turrets, they have Vikings, they have Marines. But even though like some of them have missile turrets, the Banshee is still providing that counterattack damage. It's still forcing Ryung to look back at home. He still has to actually make sure that his SCVs are around the missile turret because he's losing them. They're getting picked off from side to side. This gas geyser, that's an easy pickoff. Missile actually covers the right side of the mineral, it's just kind of funny. So, this is kind of the worst way to go. He's hoping there's no... Oh my god, there's no scan energy. Are you freaking kidding me? This is such a daredevil move. You know they don't have it in the natural, sure, but you don't know about the main quite yet. He's gonna get so many Marines! The micro, though, is real from Ryung. That was pretty real. He could have lost all of his Marines there. Still gonna lose more SCVs. Oh, he actually invested into a Raven, by the way, if any of you are, like, calling for that. But the Raven died on the offensive. 3 Cyclones, though, should ensure that any future Banshees will absolutely die if there's a scan, or if they take, like, 1 second into the missile turret vision range. That Banshee should die to 3 Cyclones. 3rd Command Center on location. Bjorn, though, reaching for Stim as opposed to a faster 3rd Command Center, a little bit faster than that is. So he probably will still go for 3rd. I don't... Well, maybe not. I was gonna say, it looks like he's banking enough minerals to do so, but maybe not. The faster +1, the faster Stim, you know, it's actually a classic little matchup right now, which is 3rd base versus army. Now, it's not more army for Bjorn, but it is going to be better army with the faster Stim. And it should eventually be better army. He got faster production as well. But then it comes down to basically the problem of, like, can I do enough damage to make up for my lack of economy? Or just randomly win the game, or don't I, and I just lose eventually. Banshee is caught in transits. There is a scan available and a Cyclone as well, so not too much damage there. 3 Cyclones, though. They want to get everything here. They want to get the Cyclone, they want to get 2 Vikings. Not actually going to be able to catch them like that, though. Thank you to Mahone7 for the new sub. Now, Bjorn has Stim finished, or close to it, 20 more seconds. But actually, there's a problem. Despite having faster production, he still doesn't have that many Marines to use said Stim. So by the time he feels confident moving out, Ryung's going to be very close to finishing it, or has already finished it, so... Guess he's not going to find an advantage there. But he starts combat shields immediately. He's going to continue with the tech advantage. And he does. He actually probably queued it up. Now, on Ryung's side of the map... actually, hold on. Well, on Ryung's side, I suppose, not his side of the map, but in his decision-making, he actually went for the Viking control. So he's going to go up to 5 Vikings against just the 2 of Bjorn. And he's going to be able to abuse this position specifically. Gets the missile turret. Bjorn probably could have repaired his Viking, so at least 1 more survived, but was focused on his tank. I suppose as if he's entirely away, misses catching this Viking because he's on just plain move command. That's a little awkward. But combat shields is way farther ahead for Bjorn. It's not done yet, though. It's Stim versus Stim. Pretty even army supply. SCVs actually are pulled for this. When do you ever see that happen? He barely skirts the edges around the tank that's already pre-sieged. He wants to get so many of those SCVs. Just all clumped up like that, that looks so tempting. But he only has one medevac. So he has to kind of slowly siege off his tanks, and now it's against superior Viking count, and he doesn't drop the tank! Oh, he needs every single unit possible. He is getting denied on mining completely, by the way. He is no longer mining in his main base. He has to kill this base, and then continue killing Ryung to actually win this game. That looks really weird. He barely saves that tank. Holy crap. He's moving his main command center over. He only has 26 SCVs, though. Ryung is going to win this game. Unless Byun can kill him right now, which he can't. He definitely can't. Medevac control, not something you usually have to talk about, but goes to Ryung. Byun has no medevacs. He has no hope if he has no medevacs. Even with the medevacs, he would have died. Viking control, man. Pretty good. That's it. Byun has lost this game. It's been so topsy-turvy. There's no way that he wins on 1.5 mining bases? Against what is going to be 3 full mining bases again, once Ryung moves his main command center. That supply block. I saw that, Ryung. Scan goes down to this third. It's actually a little difficult for Ryung to tell if that's an actual third or not, so he's still probably thinking that he has to be careful. Play it safe anyway, right? But he doesn't actually have to. He's gonna win. Combat shields are finished up. He's down an upgrade, I suppose, but only gonna be so helpful for so much longer. Byun down 20 army supplies, some of that's in Vikings, most of it's in Marines. Byun is trying to rebuild SCVs. I mean, he only has to get up to like 40, right? And you get a Squeedus for the 3-month resub. You are excellent humans. Thanks for all the StarCraft. Thank you. Well, Byun's gonna try and go for a bit of a... Not actually a Doom drop, a double drop to kill a lot of SCVs. If he has enough tanks to hold, then more power to him. But this is literally his army, and while 4 tanks is usually very scary, a concave of Marines is probably scarier. Like, to hold just tanks, you really need like 8 or something. As you can see, they get demolished, and the medevacs going towards the south aren't gonna matter. Byun doesn't tap out, though. He's really hoping. He's gonna get so many SCVs. He actually might get the command center. If he got that plus held back at home, or at least stalled out back at home, okay, maybe he brings us back. But he didn't stall out back at home. He's actually getting crushed. He's gonna lose his own command center. This is one of 2 command centers, by the way, as opposed to one of 3 command centers. Just throwing it out there. Oh, it's so close. It's gonna die. There's a Viking chasing it. But now, the only way Byun wins is if Ryung literally just moves up that ramp. That choke. It's the only way Ryung loses. Vikings are gonna try and be a hero here. Trying to get some freebie tanks by getting freebie medevacs. Doesn't quite work out. This army is cleaned up by reinforcements. This base is gonna live. The Vikings are really trying, man. They're really, really trying. They're like, well, if I can get all the medevacs and get the Viking too, then maybe I can drop on top of the tanks? I don't think you can do that. GG! God. That was a real game right there. That was a real TVT. Oh. Jeez. Well. This is going to take us to game number 3, all tied up in a best of 5. It's going to be Byun's map choice now. We're going to head on to a quick 2-minute commercial break. See you in the game. Welcome back. We are into game number 3. Didn't miss much. In the bottom right has the red Terran. He is Byun. In the top left has the blue Terran. He is Ryung. Ryung. Byun. So close, guys. So close in names. Why, God, why? Well, Apotheosis, we earlier in the day, in the morning, saw Ryung go for proxy triple barracks on this map. It was set up to work, I'm telling you. There was a Reaper expand, which usually doesn't bode well against proxy Reapers, but luckily Gumiho went for the second Reaper, as opposed to the reactor, canceled the command center, and is actually able to hold despite not scouting. Byun, I think, clearly watched that last series, that last TVT, as he was very diligently scouting on King Sejong Station initially, so it would be better off for Ryung not to try and do something sneaky again. Thank you to Chorus88 for the new sub, and Amoth for the 21-month resub. Hope y'all are having a great day. I am, thank you. Hope you are too. I have been permanently banned from this room. Got me. Damn. Well, it's going to be one base to start things off for Byun. He has gone for 2 gas geysers. Look at that exact gas geyser CV count, by the way. Whereas Byung has gone for a command center, which is usually pretty safe in Apotheosis. Now, he knows, you know, obviously, that it doesn't always mean it's safe, but it's usually a pretty okay way to go. And usually, unless you can also scout that they went for a command center, you're going to follow this up with like a defensive unit structure, unit composition, you know, a Cyclone, a Viking, and then maybe you get to your own aggressive units. But you can really play quite defensive and safe in TVT. It's not always going to look like last game, which is just, you know, blow after blow back and forth, but sometimes players get a little risky, and they do go for the immediate follow-up Banshee, which doesn't pop out quite in time, and they actually lose the units, and, you know, the whole deal. You know the deal, especially if you play Terran. They can go crazy pretty quickly. It looks like it's going to be a Banshee here for Byun. His army at the front is going to get a good look at Ryung's army, which, I mean, looks very similar to his, except there's a command center along with it. But if Ryung goes for his own Banshee or his own Liberator, might go for Banshee, then they both will be at risk, I guess. It's unfair to say that Ryung's the only one that's at risk here, but they both will be at risk of losing a lot of SCVs. Ryung does go for the safe choice first, though, as I said, like, usually expected when you're the one that expands and doesn't scout, and that's the Viking first. Maybe he'll get a Cyclone later on. But it does look like his intention is to take the Tech Lab eventually and get his own Banshees. The late counter Banshees, as I like to call them. Well, attacks out. Well, it's going pretty okay. Snipes that one last Marine. Wants to get that one last Reaper, but grenades himself. Not ideal. Instead, loses his own Reaper and has to back off. You know, that thing's not really supposed to snowball, but it is supposed to distract and maybe get a couple of key units, which, There's not really any key units here. Helens, Reapers, all good early game defense, but not too mandatory or important later on. Not as important as the Cyclone and the Viking, which he used the Tech Lab to get a Cyclone, so that's really going to solidify your defense. Now, Byun, almost done with his command center, 75% of the way done. You know, he's down 4 SCVs. He certainly has not been winning the income war, right? Income advantage, obviously in favor of Ryung, but it's usually not so much that can't be recovered in the mid-game. That's, you know, where we're going to really look for. Byun might even go for a faster third base once he realizes that his Banshee's hardcore denied. You know, because if your Banshee's actually doing some significant damage, you can continue going with Banshees. You could actually follow with maybe, like, tanks or something like that. Go for a push, although probably not in Apotheosis. But if your Banshee is just, it's not working, it's actually been kind of a waste of money to get Cloak and Banshee, you could try and go for a quick third command center, which actually they both do. But I expected Byun's to be on location. And Ryung's not on location, still started even a bit faster time than Byun, so gonna go to 3 base versus 3 base. Maybe Ryung takes the gold. I would say that he does, especially when he sees that Byun has, but we will see. Second Banshee here, also getting pretty hardcore denied. Can't even take out the Cyclone. Oh well. Okay, Reaper gets in here. That's pretty late. Gets a Scout. At this point in time, in like the mid-game with third CCs on the way, you would say that scouting's not that important, but when you consider that without medevac drops, which, you know, they haven't really gone for, it is the only scout he's going to get, you know. It's going to tell him that it's not mech, which, you know, is not very likely from Byun anyway, but it's also telling him what the add-ons look like. Like, how quickly are you trying to double drop me with 2 tanks type deal, as opposed to getting all your production set up, which is what Byun actually is doing. He used that reactor as a, he used that starport as a reactor builder. Nice way to put it. Third base is finishing up. I'm not sure that Ryung's Reaper actually saw that on location. It did not. It had the possibility to, and it definitely could have, but didn't go over there. So it might be a surprise. Maybe not. You know, if they're not attacking you already, if they haven't sent 4 more Banshees towards you already, then okay, it's probably an expand build. Or game. And he will take his own gold base. Pre-breaks the rocks, so he can pre-break the other rocks. So this never has to bother him. Byun, I'm a little surprised doesn't do the same thing, but there was actually a game that he played where that was... Or... Was it Ryung's game? I can't remember anymore, but basically it was very important that he broke down the rocks. No, it was Byun's game against Stork, that's right. And bought more time because it turned into a base trade. Anyway, a bit of scuffle here and there. Stim lining up together, 1-1 lining up together. Not gonna make a big difference here. Maybe Byun gets a bit of a... He's gonna get a bit faster too, because he starts the armory. Ryung, there it is, there's the armory. But not so much that should affect the game. If the difference in upgrades is like 30 seconds or less, the chances of it actually affecting the game is pretty low, especially on big maps. But it can happen sometimes. Combat shield's gonna be faster, I guess, for Ryung. Hopefully Byun remembers and hasn't just forgotten. That's always the scary thing when you see these guys in their production tabs. Sometimes they think they started it, they didn't start it, or they just simply forget it. I remember one time MMA just completely forgot to get 1-1. He got double Jiren Bay and never got 1-1. It was really silly. It was one of those... Yeah, I think he said it was like one of the worst games he ever played, but... The attack commences. Ryung is the aggressor here, trying to siege up the gold base. That's the one downside for sure of taking the gold base versus a Terran. And of course in TVT, is that the first person to abuse the ledge is, you know, the first person to get much better mining. As now Byun is just simply forced to lift off and take the other base, which is not comparative to what Ryung has done. All that Byun can do is hope his Cyclone get like a single SCV kill. If he scans, if he gets high vision. Not too great. And Ryung's even continuing to push into Byun. He's got the Viking control and the tanks and the medevacs, so this is a very scary situation for Byun. Now Byun, I think he has more Marines. That makes sense, right? Yeah, he's 8 more Marines. But is that really enough? Questionable. Ryung does not have all of his army here now, though, which is why he should retreat soon. Breaks down the rocks, and this should be his retreat point. Tries to get another pot shot in the Marines. Almost works out. But he sees the army move out. He takes care of the Cyclone, it looks like, and now can get his army set up into a good position. First to get to a second factory, it looks like. Yeah, Ryung's gonna hold off, or Byun is gonna hold off a little bit longer on that. Upgrades ended up not being in favor of Byun, by the way. He's actually down 6 seconds, but right, like, what? Is that really gonna be a big deal? Probably not. Combat shields is finished up for both of them as well, and everything is looking pretty damn even. This is gonna come down really to how does the engagement go down. Byun thinks about taking the high ground, and then decides not to. Drops the tanks, but this is terrible for him, actually. They used a shot on the not clumped up Marines, basically, so the Marines coming from the north actually got a lot of damage done to them, and Byun gets kind of wrecked right there. He doesn't dip down so heavily in army supply that it's game over, but he was caught in a bad position. So he's down 10 army supply, and of course, remember, not on the gold base. Ryung has used, I guess, the extra 400 minerals maybe he got at some point. I think he delayed his barracks to get a 4th on location. And he's also going to use that really good engagements to take control of the map again. Fortunately loses the Vikings. That kind of sucks. But at least they give him advance notice, so he doesn't run into a handful of Marines. 3 attacks starts sooner for Ryung. Second factory finally finishing up here for Byun. But Ryung's had like 2 double tank production so far. Not that tanks are the end-all be-all, mind you. It just is, eventually you do want to have equalized production. This actually reaches the barracks. Tanks have a lot of range. Yeah. Not much else he can do, though. Like, not much further he can push forward, but it's still really nice to take care of production, even if it's only 1 barracks. And I guess all the Marines that are rallying forward, too. Doesn't want to overstay his welcome, so backs off. Gets the faster +2, and Byun is actually starting to fall behind in every little place that he can. So he's falling behind an army, the tiniest bit, like seriously tiny bits, falling behind in SCV counts, and of course he fell behind in the fact that, you know, Bjorn doesn't have a gold base. But also all of the upgrades, 2-2, and the vehicle weapons. Now he is getting a Viking control, so that's the one thing going really well for Bjorn right now. 3 Vikings, 5 Vikings in the mid to late game sometimes can be useless. Sometimes they just get sniped off because they go ahead of the army, exactly what happened to Ryung. Sometimes they catch the opposite, though. They see a medevac coming and they actually snipe it before it can, like, drop a tank, for instance. And of course, we'll give you the free vision if you don't have scans. At this point, though, in like the mid to late game, that aspect of having Viking control seems like so less important, you know, the no scan thing, because you've got enough SCVs, you're not really mule dropping all the time anymore. You usually have enough scans that Viking control doesn't just push you back over the span of like a minute to 2 minutes. You usually hold on to do something else. Ryung is really taking control over this game. His 4th base is up and ready to go. His 5th base actually on location as well. He could lift his main command center, take a 6th base at this time. Takes another great fight, and Bjorn actually just fell apart. I mean, that one engagement over here was not good, and that started, I think, Bjorn's real downfall here. But he's been falling behind little bit by little bit in the economy ever since that gold base was denied, and it has led to Ryung's victory. If anyone could beat Bjorn, it would be either a Protoss, which didn't happen, or Ryung in a TVT, because this is this guy's specialty. But Bjorn, he does this thing, man, especially in the Alima League. He goes down a game, he goes down 2 games, maybe even 3 back when it was a best of 7, and he just comes back because he always wins. So Ryung has to be on the lookout for that happening. This is going to be Bjorn's map choice. So basically one of 2 maps. It's like choice. And then of course the last map's not going to be really a choice, but a forced one. I think they haven't played on Frozen Temple or Frost, I want to say. Did they play on New Gettysburg already? Yeah, they did. Next map's Frost. Ryung can win only TVT, maybe. It is his best matchup. There's the countdown. Ooh. I'm actually gonna check Alima League stats really quickly. Okay, I totally misspelled Wikipedia. Let's do the intros real quick. It's Frost, it's a best of 5, and in the bottom right, let's swap that around, he is now down a game. It's the Red Terran, Bjorn. In the upper right, as the Blue Terran, he is Ryung. So you just like look up Bjorn here, right? So Bjorn won the last 2 Alima League monthlies, sorry. And in the last couple of weeklies, he got... Well, he didn't show up for 2 of them, I want to say. Bjorn, but okay, anyways. He did win 3 weeks ago. I guess that's how he got the lock-in to this finals. And then before that, he was on a triple win streak. This guy has won so many Alima Leagues. Ryung, I guess, got locked in to this Alima League final due to his performance in the last weekly, in fact, which he lost to Lucira. I don't remember that at all. Great. I'm pretty sure I cast it. I'm pretty sure I may even solo casted it. Oh well. Happens. I don't know what my cat is doing, but he's eating something. It's usually not a good sign. Let's see what's happening here. 1 base for Bjorn. Again, for now. Ryung going for Reaper Expand. This was Bjorn's map choice, but again, like with the limited number of selection after already playing 3 games, I can do math. as well as having only 5 in the map pool, it's kind of like, okay, what is really going to be your favorite map left over? And in a TVT, it's, you know, its choices are basically being super aggressive or playing a macro game. But you can actually do both of those on any map as a Terran player. Terran is a pretty, you know, all-around good race. Not balance complaints or anything, but that's like one of the appeals of them, is that whereas you could argue a Zerg, you know, with the larva gets like super nice in a macro game, the macro Zergs are the scariest. Protoss has like a cheese, right? Terran has always been like that all-around race. It has its potential, especially in TVT, to be good early game, mid game, and late game. And TVT, I think, is a beautiful matchup because it is so well defined early, mid, and late game. You can have the 1 base versus 1 base builds into 2 base versus 2 base into 3 base versus 3 base, like almost the King Sejong game that we saw. Unlike some of the other matchups, where like in TVZ, for instance, you're almost always guaranteed to go to 2 bases versus 3, and usually in Legacy of the Void, 3 versus 4. But that's just my opinion, man. I know a lot of people don't like TVT. And a lot of people actually hate playing TVT, especially because the 1 base builds are so prevalent. But oh well. Starport's pretty well timed out here. Again, Ryung going for the 1 Rax expand with no scout until now. Actually burns a scan, kind of interesting. Goes for the careful Viking at first. Didn't he start a Viking at first? But then goes to the Banshee. He actually got onto the Tech Lab. That might have been because of what he scanned. He might have changed his mind depending on what he scanned. I'm not sure, but I could have sworn there was a Viking on there, unless I'm going crazy. But they're both going to go for Banshees, and I talked about this last game. If they both go for Banshees and they both don't know it, like 100% for sure, and Byun does not know it, by the way, complete. They can just like kill, like each other, kill 10 SCVs. Or sometimes one player has an army in position, the other one doesn't, and it's like 10 SCVs versus no SCVs. Like, the Banshee versus Banshee dynamic can be really silly. Whereas usually the Banshee versus Viking Cyclone dynamic is very easily called. Scan goes down for Byun, so they don't bother scouting with SCVs or Reapers on Frost. And now I think they both have a good inkling that it's a Banshee build. What did Ryung scout exactly? Yeah, he saw that. Yeah, okay, so they both know this Banshee build. Missile turret's already going to be on the way for Ryung, I suppose. And for Byun. Pretty evenly timed engineering base. Banshee goes into the natural, which is usually the most expected place to be, but in some like weird mind game situation could actually be the least expected. You know? It's vertical, of course you come here, so of course you wouldn't be foolish enough to come here. That type of thing. Banshee does go down! Damn! That had to be Cyclone's last shot. And he scanned, I think, 1 to give the Cyclone range, and also in case Cloak had finished up, which it was so close to finishing up for Byun, but either way, would have died. Banshee, this is what you expect. The Banshee to come around to the main base, because the natural is way too obvious. Byun was pretty well prepared for that. Gets a lock on, thanks to that Raven. Didn't need a scan, and only missed out on a few seconds on his command center. Which Ryung also starts. Both gonna go for bio, again expected. I think Ryung can play mech. He has in the past, for sure. Whereas I think Byun has always been a bio player, even when mech was like, I think like arguably the better of the two. But Byun has just always liked bio. But Ryung has gone from like this way and that way throughout StarCraft 2's history. It's just like Legacy of the Void. Legacy of the Void, you really have to be a special type of person to play mech. Which is what Rifkin does. Heyo. But so does Gumiho, and that's not a bad person to be compared to. Chases away this little tiny army to the Xel'Naga. Really, with both of them choosing the path that they have, you know, not really committing to a lot of Banshees, both getting fairly defensive units after that anyway, Raven, Cyclone, and both going for third command centers, fights aren't really going to be too problematic. They're not going to be... If there's going to be any fighting whatsoever, it's going to be with very limited amount of units. It should not end the game this one way or the other. And neither one of them are actually going to try and push with their army. Ryung falls behind in the armor upgrade by about 40 seconds, which is a little bit scary. Looks like all on like the cusp of like maybe being a potential factor whenever stim and combat shields are done for both of them, whenever they actually do want to push out. But we'll see. That was just a straight up mistake, I believe. Maybe started it on the other engineering bay on accident or something like that. Well, Reaper gets the last scout you'll ever really need in a Terran's main base. You see that it's bio, you see the third base, you see double engineering bay, I think you also saw. Like, that's really all the information you need. And, not much else. You can assume, too, where they're going to take the third base. If either one of them took the bases in the middle, then they're way too aggressive. I'm going to calm down a bit. The only downside of taking this base is if it was horizontal spawns, obviously. So, the chances of Ryong getting tanks up here or Byun getting tanks up here is fairly low. Now this is awkward. This sometimes happens with the vertical spawns. One player decides to take the ramp, the other player takes the wide open area. The ramp can sometimes not be scouted, but it is a choke. This is not a choke, but it can be scouted by the Xel'Naga. So there's, like, you know, appeals to taking both sides. Ryong was scouted by a Cyclone, but in doing so knew where Byun's army was as well, and they both just kind of deflect off each other again. Combat shield starts for Ryong, but not for Byun, so... again, hopefully Byun does start that soon. There we go. Ryong, yeah, actually gets a couple of nice shots. One nice shot on the Marines. I was gonna say, he started his armory a little bit quicker, so he did fall behind in the +1 shields. Armor, rather. He's, heading ahead in the +2 attack. Raven harassment coming down here. Always a good move. Why not? It's really not going to be able to help out otherwise. Point defense drone doesn't really help in Marine tank fights after all. And secret missiles very rarely work against it too. If it was Heart of the Swarm, then actually the double secret missile on tanks was super important. But now that you can just pick them up and leave, it's like whatever. It's better off doing this auto turret thing. +2 attack starts for Byun, but he's forgotten the armor for now. Didn't have enough gas, actually, that's what it was. And it's getting kind of close to fight time. Byun does have a 20 army supply lead, as well as a 12 worker supply lead, partially thanks to that Raven harassment. But his combat shields aren't quite done, and it's a little scary to take an engagement before that happens. Couple seconds. Ryong should not be able to take care of this, to force an issue, basically. Like he did versus Gumiho. That was one of the reasons he won versus Gumiho, is that he started the comeback by taking advantage of Gumiho's later combat shields. Not gonna happen in this game. Both getting additional factories. This Raven's still not gonna be taken care of. Well, I guess technically it has kind of been. Mr. plus Marines, I suppose. Ryong can't really push in with Byun defending, and he's not getting any luck catching Byun out of position. So, kind of stalled out right now. A little bit. More auto turret harassments. Raven almost died. Unfortunately, it really only has this one location to place an auto turret anymore. How did it not die? He simmed all of his Marines to do that. Oh well. Ryong is actually going further down in army supply. Now down 20, 30? 30 army supply. With only slightly faster bio upgrades. He has not gone for the vehicle weapon upgrades, which I'm pretty sure Ryong has been pretty on point with before. So I don't, this might be a actual decision, or he might just not have remembered to get it. He certainly is making enough gas for it, but not quite minerals. I don't think he wants to take an engagement anytime soon. He might just be forced to, though. Actually, a bit of indecisiveness there. Realizing the tanks were alone for a second, but already running away from them, wasn't able to pounce. Brings his own tanks over, but he's still down 30 army supply, and the upgrades are no longer going to be in his favor. They're going to be even. Actually, not in his favor, the tank upgrade. Oh, he already finished it. I'm dumb. My bad. So he does have a tank upgrade. But, again, not for long. Everything's evening up. Byun has a faster fourth base, and as I showed on the graphs, he is winning the income war. He's had more SCVs for much longer, and still has more SCVs. His army supply is starting to be bridged, though. As they both get maxed out, it will just truly come down to who has the better engagements. Pretty bold for Byun to do that. Does get a nice shot or two off on those Marines. I think all of the tanks actually fired in the heart of the Marines. And now it's Byun in control for now. So not gonna attempt to be taken. Ryong could start sending medevacs around, well, medevac around the map to try and take care of any of the extra bases that he might be falling behind on, but unfortunately, entirely focused on the defense, does not have anything of the sort running around. And Byun really is trying to get to that third base. He's skirting along the edges, and Ryong can't quite keep up. He's only taken a portion of his tanks, despite having enough medevacs to take all of them, too. If he's caught with only, you know, 4 tanks... actually, he still has 5, actually 6. Like, it's not that scary yet, but if he's only caught with half of his tanks against the full might of Byun's army, that could be a big deal. The tanks are... whoopsie, wrong button. The tanks are able to reach that SCV line, by the way, and Ryung is forced to attack. Actually, this is weird. Byun's Marines didn't cover his tanks. So that was one part that he actually almost... I think he intentionally pulled the Marines back, and then 2 parts that his tanks were alone to the north. So Ryung actually takes advantage of the positioning there. Byun didn't want to stim into, I guess, Ryung's 7, 8 tanks. Ryung could drop his tanks. Don't know why he didn't. It's kind of awkward. But now, anytime Byun tries to run away, Ryung will give chase, and he is actually doing a great job. He's taking on the medevacs too. Byun, I don't know why he didn't just full-on retreat. That's what I was expecting him to do. I guess he really didn't want to lose the Marines, but in doing so lost medevacs and tanks and trying to protect them. This is the main command center, by the way, so really Byun could just have 7 Marines walk over here, stim, and kill a lot of SCVs, so be very careful. This drop is cleaned up with a perfect reinforcement line from Ryung. Ryung's upgrades have finished. His +2's done, his +3's done, but it looks like things are going to be entirely even when all is said and done. Byun actually reaching a little bit for the Terran building armor, but, you know, they're even army supply, and he was banking a few minerals. The tank count is pretty extreme. It's 10 for Ryung, 6 for Byun, about to be 5, I think. There we go. 4, actually. And Ryung is just winning the fights. This is where Byun had a weakness a couple months ago. He was losing to the other Terrans in the Elime League. I mean, I think he's even losing to, like, Keen, right? Not the strongest contender, but a decent one. Because his army fights in TVT were not the greatest. And it's happening again. Ryung is just, he sees an engagement and he takes it, and it works out exactly as he imagines it, you know? We try and do that as plebs, and we just die. Oh, those tank shots, though. Oh my god, I think he just killed like 6 tanks. Those 2 tanks were the ultimate ballers. They help Byun survive a little while longer. But he did lose a 3rd command center. That's another orbital not in his repertoire, I suppose. Although Ryung also has a similar problem. But, oh, nice drop to this 4th base. It's a planetary, but it doesn't have high ground vision, and it doesn't have... Well, now it has high-sec auto tracking. It doesn't have high ground vision, so that was nice. 12 more SCVs go down. Ryung takes the SCV advantage. He's going to take an upgrade advantage, too. +3 vehicle weapon upgrades on the way. And they both depleted their banks of minerals. I don't really care about the gas right now. Ryung has that 40 army supply lead. Can't get too far away from his tanks. The Marine count from Byun's still pretty good. Let's remember that Ryung is up a game. If he wins this, he will take the series. It's only a best of 5. And he's really looking like he will take the series. A little bit awkward here. I don't think Ryung was gonna anticipate high-sec auto tracking already being done, so his Marines weren't attacking the SCVs anyway, and Marines were over here cleaning it up. But Byun, high-sec auto tracking building armor. Okay, yeah, his planetary probably won't be stopped anytime soon, but because he lost this base, it's not like he's on a super decent, great economy, it is. Great economy. He's on a decent one, actually. It's a pretty perfect word for what he's on. 43 SCVs. About to be 3 command centers mining again. That's decent. Ryung, as he gets maxed out first, will start to bank, and he can actually start getting actual extra command centers. 4th, 5th, probably. He could just try and win the game as well. As Byun tries to get this base forward, in the forward position, he also takes away the advantage of what he did have, which was the high ground and a little bit of a choke and like the ledges. Now it's an open area where Ryung could take another good fight, given a good concave, you know, tanks go down first, that type of stuff. And he does have an upgrade lead now. Bring down the rocks on a bad idea. Byun is, at this point in time, entirely on the defensive. Marines once again harassing Byun's 4th base, and they can't do much about it. Ryung breaks him here. He could go down to the 3rd again and kill another command center, or he could try and just kill the army. Byun is actually sending his Marines across the map. He will snipe this orbital, but Ryung could actually remake it. He's already getting another base, so I don't think he's too upset about that. Well, Byun gets one base. Ryung is about to get his second orbital in this game. There it goes. And he has reinforcements, by the way. So his production, the one thing that Byun could have done, get on top of Ryung's production and win the game that way, not gonna happen. Byun anticipated this. Ryung anticipated this and had defensive setup for it. Byun's army entirely way too stimmed. No medevacs really, just the two, and one's almost dead. Byun is definitely losing. He's down to one orbital. And Ryung just transfers over his natural. Not such a big deal. Ryung. He's only, quote-unquote, up about 40 army supply, so a bad tank fight, okay. Whoopsie. A bad tank fight could still ruin his lead, but it'd be really hard to do. This wasn't even like the greatest fight ever, but it still was numbers and better concave. GG, Ryung takes the series 3-1. And actually takes Byun out of his Lima League medal. He's just gonna get a silver this time, and he already has so many silvers. He wants more golds. Actually, I think Byun has more golds than silvers. I don't even know if he has any bronzes. Anyway, congratulations to Ryung. We finally have a new person to interview for the Lima League interviews. If you haven't seen those, actually, I think posted on like the Facebook of Lima League, as well as I feel like on Team Liquid at one point. I know Byun did an interview. Anyway. Ugh. I think that's just about it. Yep, everyone's saying good games and whatnot at the end there. Gonna take a quick commercial break and then come back and do our my shoutouts, Bayshade TV shoutouts. So be back in 2 minutes. Hey, thanks for watching those ads. As said before, just doing the end stream shoutouts. First and foremost, this was the Lima League monthly finals. Congratulations to Ryung for winning 3-1 against Byun. I don't know, that nice chunk of change and whatnot. But if you want to support the Lima League, then go to patreon.com/oliamoli. Not only are you supporting the Korean scene, you're also getting some pretty cool perks, like the replays from today, like your replays cast, a bunch of different stuff that you can check out. But of course, also helping the Korean scene would be my first reason to go there. But you can also, if you want to, if you didn't actually check it out, but want to see the VODs maybe, twitch.tv/Lima League to see the player cams and whatnot, some pretty cool in-studio stuff. And yeah, just generally support the Lima League. For us at Bayshade TV, thanks to our channel sponsors, Chairs for Gaming, G2A, Yord, and Corsair, some of which we actually saw at TwitchCon and talked to, and that was a lot of fun. Follow me on Twitter at ZG Gaming. Follow Rifkin, who was here for about half of the cast, at Riff_Kings. Follow the Lima League. Follow Bayshade TV down below. If you haven't used your Amazon free subscription, consider using that on us. That'd be really cool. And speaking of which, I did miss a sub. Thank you to Philly Herbs for the new sub that happened about 8 minutes ago during the action. And I think that's just about it. The winner's interview is actually happening at the Lima League Twitch. I do believe it's in Korean, so if you just want to see what Ryung looks like and then get the translation later, then that's a thing you could do. I'm gonna host someone after, probably Crank, to be honest. We'll see. But thanks for watching, everyone, and we'll see you, actually, I guess a quick note on the schedule that I have to change because I only just got back. Tomorrow is not the random tournament, because a lot of players are in Kiev apparently right now for WESG. So we're just going to do something a bit different tomorrow, but we should be back online casting something tomorrow. And then I guess we'll go from there. So thanks for watching, everyone. See you later. Bye.